My name is Jason Padilla, and I'm your technical host for today's webinar. This webinar series is brought to you today by Plantae, the open online community for plant scientists powered by the American Society of Plant Biologists. I would like to give a special thank you to all our ASPB members who are attending today. Your ASPB membership dues help make this webinar possible. For any of you who have not yet joined ASPB, you can join today using the discount code %10 to receive a 10% discount on your membership dues. And for ASPB members, you get access to this webinar and many other content. And you can learn more about ASPB and all the amazing opportunities that we provide at aspb.org. Next slide. Back one more, perfect. So this webinar is recorded. We've had so many other webinars, and all of them are available on the Plantae YouTube channel. So if you are looking for many other exciting talks around plant science content, feel free to tune into our YouTube channel. And so you could just look up Plantae YouTube, and you'll find all this webinar, including this webinar, once we've uploaded the recording. Next slide. Before we get started, I'd like to go over some housekeeping items to make sure that you get most of today's webinar. If you are experiencing technical issues, please let us know about those using the chat box or emailing me at jpadilla@aspb.org. If you have questions for our guest speakers, please add them in the Zoom Q&A section. Our moderator will be sharing them with our speakers during the Q&A. And so I know a lot of you came with questions, so make sure that remember to type those and share those, and we'll try to get them answered for you. If you have trouble connecting or need to leave the webinar early, as I mentioned, this webinar is recorded and it will be made available in our YouTube channel. So remember to follow Plantae YouTube and to receive notification when new content are posted. And without further ado, I am now going to turn it over to our Plantae Fellows who are moderating today's sessions. Take it away, Plantae Fellows.
Oh, thank you, Jason, for the introduction to this webinar. I'm Marvin, and I'm one of the Plantae Fellows and moderators for this webinar. So first off, I'd like to welcome you all to this Plantae webinar titled Navigating Conferences for Beginners. Our invited speakers will cover some of the intricacies regarding conference attendance as a beginner. Now, today we are honored to have Professor Sean Hartman from the University of Freiburg in Germany. And also based in Germany, we have Professor Anna Matuszynska from Aachen University. Next slide, please. Now, for this webinar, we will do as follows. We will start by introducing all of our moderators, followed by our invited speakers before we go into our speaker-led presentation. Now, finally, we will wrap up the seminar with a Q&A session where we'll answer hopefully all of your questions. So please write down your questions during the presentation in the Q&A section so we can collate them for our speakers to answer them afterwards. Well, please also make sure that you write down if it's an open question to either of our speakers, or you would like to address the question directly to a specific speaker. Next slide, please. Thank you. Now, first off, so I'll be introducing myself. So I'm a second-year PhD student in the Research School of Biology at the Australian National University, and I am interested in root developmental biology. And my research focus on identifying putative gene targets regulating root angle growth in the Arabidopsis plant model in hopes to engineer better crop systems for future climates and environment. Next slide, please. Next, we have Amarachi, who have earned her master's degree in Germany and is currently pursuing a PhD doctoral degree at the Carleton University in Ottawa, Canada. And her research focuses on utilizing molecular genetics in improving plant architecture. Amarachi is deeply committed to science communication and policy, advocating for quality education and sustainable environments, and she also finds joy in sharing her expertise and insights with diverse audiences. Next slide, please. Now, Finally, we have Abdul Kabir, who is a graduate student at the Surplus Graduate School in Germany and a 2024 Plantae editor. His research focuses on using an experimental evolution approach to assemble plant growth promoting soil microbiomes, and he's passionate about science communication and sustainable crop production. In his free time, he loves playing soccer and enjoying nature views. Now I'm going to pass to Abdul Kabir, who will introduce our invited speakers. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Marvin, for that wonderful introduction. And today we are lucky to have persons like Professor Sean Huffman, who is a junior professor of plant environmental signaling and development at the Center for Integrative Biological Signaling Studies at University of Freiburg, Germany. His lab was established at the start of 2022. The main focus of his lab is understanding how plants sense, respond, and acclimate to flooding stress. Sean performed his BSc, MSc, and PhD studies at Utrecht University, Netherlands, and moved to Freiburg after a brief postdoc at Gibbs Lab in Birmingham, UK. In his free time, he enjoys good food, hikes in the Black Forest, and tending to his reef aquarium. Thank you very much for joining us today, Sean. And the second speaker we have here is Anna Matuszynska, who is a junior professor in the computational life science at RWTH Aachen University, Germany. She received her engineering and master's degrees in mathematics from the Gdańsk University of Technology in Poland and earned a second master's degree in drug discovery from Aberdeen University in Scotland. In 2016, Matuszynska completed her doctoral degree in computational biology from Heinrich Heine University, Düsseldorf, Germany. Her group is developing mechanistic computational models of plant primary and secondary metabolism with a primary focus, in particular focus on photosynthesis and light regulation in the context of agricultural limitations, plant bioenergetics, and organisms interactions. Thank you very much for joining us today, Anna, and we are happy to have you on board. So quickly to the first talk for the day, we'll have Sean, who will talk to us briefly about his part of the talk. Go on, Sean.
Yeah, thank you, Abdul Kabir. So I need to be able to share my screen, or else I cannot start my presentation.
Yep.
I think someone needs to stop sharing the screen. Thank you. So I think that's correct, yeah? You see my normal presentation screen. All right. Then thank you very much all for inviting me to tell a little bit about my experiences, by mostly user experience of attending conferences, and to give my thoughts on how to navigate yourself through your first conferences experiences and hopefully how to get the most out of this. So I wouldn't necessarily claim to be an expert, but as I said, I've been to many conferences in the last, let's say, 9 years since I started my PhD. I've organized a few. I've organized a few sessions. I've moderated a few early career sessions. So I guess I have a few experiences that I can share with you. Of course, as a user, I thought, well, what can I say about it? And because I was preparing for this, I thought, what is a conference for me? So I think a conference is very personal for everyone. You have your own aims and goals and ideas about this. And I realized that by now I typically feel these kind of typical episodes that are coming to, for me, are the conference experience. So for me, you have signed up to a conference, right? And now it's coming closer, and the anticipation is getting there. So you're going to one of your first conferences, and you get the emails with the abstract books, or there's a tweet about the organizing of the conference, and you're getting stoked to go there, right? Then the second part, which can be quite stressful and quite a hiccup, is the travel, right? So you might have to only take an hour train ride, or you might take a 2-day travel to the other side of the world. And this can be very exciting and very interesting as well. And it's typically what you can remember often when you think about some of the highlight conferences that you've been to in hindsight. So you arrived, everything is good, the conference is starting, and finally you're going to watch some amazing talks and watch some amazing science. And likely you're going to meet some of your heroes, right? So you've maybe been writing and reading your papers, and there's these typical et als that always keep coming back, and maybe now you're going to meet them. They say never meet your heroes, but often it's a very pleasurable experience, I would say, to meet some of the big hotshots. Sometimes in your field can be very nice. And often you don't know it yet, but when I think back, you're going to meet your future friends. So Actually, if I think about conferences, what I remember by far the most is who I met at which conference that I now still have quite, I would say, close collaborative or actually friendly relationship with. And I think this is something very nice. Is it all good? I think so. Most of it is very good. But one thing that will hit everyone, and I think this you have to be prepared for, but it's very normal. I think everybody has it at one point, is you're going to be very, very, very exhausted. All right. So you have your jet lag, maybe, but even then, the days are long. It's very intensive. The rooms are dark. They are not well ventilated. Sometimes they're very beautiful, such as in this church area here. But ultimately, it's going to hit you in the face, and half of the audience is going to be struggling not to fall asleep, but it's normal. Towards the end, you're going to make it. You're at the end. And overall, at least I feel such a boost, such a surge in motivation and inspiration after finishing the conference. And I feel, yeah, that was really worth it. And I'm excited to go home and do those experiments or write up this part that I was thinking about, or start this collaboration, or test these new mutant lines that I've just, learned a lot about. And then, you go back to normal, and normal hits you in the face. So going to a conference can be really a nice break from the daily routine, but it can also hit you back once you come back. But this is part of the experience, and it's all very, very good. So that is my conference experience, and I hope that you hopefully also in the future have some nice positive thoughts about experiencing your one of your first conferences, right? So for today, I was asked, so how do you navigate through a conference? And I was specifically asked to focus on these topics, right? So I never really put much thought myself in how do I actually prepare for a conference. But today I would try to structure it, and it was interesting to think about this a bit and share your thoughts with me. So specifically, I will be covering, so what are in my opinion the benefits of attending conferences, right? I think you all have some of them in mind, but maybe some of them are not currently on your mind and might be eye-opening. In addition, I was asked when to apply for conferences, but also how to choose. And to me, when I was thinking about this, to me, these are connected. I cannot really separate them. And I think I will come to that, because it really depends on what you want to get out of your conference. You have to set an aim, and that chooses when you should apply and how you should decide where to go, yeah, or the other way around. And then how do you make it possible? So is there funding available for you, or should you be looking for extra funding to make sure that you can go to your dream conference? Yeah. Before I go into the next part, I really want to disclaim that it's just my opinion. Yeah. What I'm saying today is highly subjective. It's just my opinion. Always take more opinions into account. It comes also from a person that I would say, like, my personality is towards extrovert. I really thrive in a conference situation. I really enjoy it there. I feel stressed because maybe I have to give a talk, but I don't feel stressed about the situation or something like this. I really enjoy it. Yeah. I also have to realize that I am very privileged in many, many ways. And I realize that that's not the case for everyone. In the case of conferences, I was never really, really limited in funding problems. Let's say I could go to most conferences that I wanted to go to. And also, I don't have often visa problems. And I realize that many people may have problems that visa issues can limit where they can go. Yeah. So keep that in mind when I'm talking about what I think you should do, whether this is actually possible, right? And also, I am now a junior professor, which means I have a survivor bias. What I did in the past, I can think that made me where I am today, but that might have actually, in spite of what I did in the past, I might be where I am today. That's not necessarily a causation, let's say. So keep that in mind. My guidelines are subjective. So keeping that in mind, let's move on to the next part. So why should you go to a conference? Maybe already think about this now a bit in your head. I guess there's at least 2 or 3 that you at least can all think of yourself. But the first one, I think, is clear. It's about the science, right? So we are scientists, and we go to a conference to learn about the science. And this can have many, many aspects. It's not just to watch one specific topic or talk, but we want to learn from the experts in the field, potentially to be inspired, to see different techniques, to see the latest of what's happening, hopefully unpublished, right? Not just from the big star professors, but also from what our peers of your career stage, early or late PhD students, postdocs, what are they doing at this level? How are they managing their day-to-day life, and what is the science that they're doing? You also get a feel for the standards in the field, right? What is the cutting edge level where we should be potentially aiming for, and where is the field going? So these are often reasons that people say, here, that's why I go to a conference. One thing I really noticed in the last years is that I really feel, especially in my field, part of a community. So we really feel in our field, you're part of a community. So this can be the plant proteostasis field, the plant pathogen field. We are in the plant flooding hypoxia field, and you feel that everybody has similar interests and similar goals, and that makes you feel like you belong somewhere, and it can be a very nice feeling and a safe space to discuss anything that you want to discuss. Yeah? Another thing that I kind of noticed, but I think maybe it takes some time and maybe you have to stay in the late hours to talk to people, is that sometimes you learn at conference the unwritten. So everything that everybody knows, and then there's things in your field or in the plant sciences that nobody openly discusses, but you realize that maybe some things are not as they seem to be, and that is kind of interesting. And if you have if you want to ask me for specifics, you can ask me and more. Yeah. So the science is important, but what is also important for a conference is you, right? So what you can do there is show what you are doing, right? Showcase your work and yourself. Your capacity to present well is what you can do there, and you can increase your visibility. Show that you belong where you belong, and that you are here to present your work, right? And get feedback on that, and hopefully to increase your CV and visibility. And maybe if you do a very good job, you might even win an award for a poster presentation or a talk. And I think the third one that everybody says, networking, right? So the first two, maybe you could have done during COVID, for online conferences. The third one, much more difficult. And I think this is a very big strength of in-person conferences, is networking. So you really meet peers, you meet people with similar interests. Sometimes you can really match with someone, you can make even potential friends, which should not be the goal, but it happens to be that it can evolve, right? You can talk about expertise, you can talk about potential job opportunities, about publishing, about collaborations, etc., etc. So you can see that I have one example here of where I met someone, I talked to them, and overall this led to a pretty decent publication. I was very happy about that. And I think there's more. So, okay, I see that I have to hurry up a bit when I'm on time wise, but so I think you also at a conference really can hear other things. So like from PhD students in a similar boat, if they're struggling or not struggling, these kind of things, it can be very nice to hear that, discover other countries, and be simply inspired and motivated when you come back from such a place. So how do you choose and when to go? That was the second part. And for me, that all depends on what you want to get out of it. And I think if you want to go to a conference, that should not be, how to say, it doesn't have to be so difficult, but sometimes you have a specific goal and you should be ready and to think about this. Yeah. So have an aim. And if it helps you, see it as an experiment. If you have an experiment, you have an aim. And how do you get there, right? How do you get there? You cannot do a good experiment if you don't know the aim, right? So design it as such, plan it and prepare it accordingly. Yeah. And as an example, okay, I just want to really present my postdoc work to an expert audience. Then you have to go to a big expert audience meeting, right? That is just an example. Another example, I just really would like to give my very first talk as a PhD student to introduce my topic, to get a bit familiar, of feedback, in a safe space that is not where the experts are judging me too harsh. Then maybe you go more to a general local meeting. Yeah? So this kind of things, depending on what you want to get out of it, you can think about it like this. You can design where you want to go. And sometimes you can hit multiple flies with one stone. The English expression is always difficult for me, but often you can meet multiple targets in one conference, right? So how do you choose and where to go? You can only decide that if you know what is there and what is possible, right? So depending on where you are in your career stage and your network, you might have an idea of all the conferences in your field, everything that is possible, or you might have no idea at all. It is important, I think, to get a bit of a feeling in your field. What are the conferences out there? When are they there, right? So expert meetings in your field might only be there once every 3 years, right? So if you want to be there, you have to get a bit ready and plan for this. But also other more general meetings that are maybe more national or actually local, right? And what is possible. So talk to your PI, get a feeling of your group. What is the standard in your group? What is allowed, right? So in some groups, people may go to 5 conferences. In other groups, you may go to 1 conference during your entire PhD. You have to get a bit of a feel for this so that you can make a decision and not regret that decision later on. I'm not saying that this is the same for everyone, but I think in some or many cases, you are limited by what your PI thinks you should do, or often also by money, right? So what is the budget, and design based on this. And if you have a goal, then you can plan accordingly, right? And you can use specific criteria on what you should do and what you shouldn't do. So if your goal is to give a talk, obviously you should go to a conference where you think you can get the chance to give a talk, else you shouldn't go there. Yeah. Do you need support of the conference? Do you need financial support? If that is the case, then you need to apply for a conference where you can get financial support, right? These kind of things. Do you want to increase the chance that you give a talk? Maybe there is a conference that has early career support. So there's dedicated slots for 2-minute talks, 5-minute slot, 10-minute slots, depending on your career stage, and you have a good chance to get in there, and you can actually showcase yourself, right? And in general, from experience, you go much more often to local, general, and even potentially free conferences where you can get a lot of experience, and you only maybe once a year, every 2 years, you go to a highly specific and more expensive and international meet. And that is very normal, right? But know which ones you want to go to. And be a bit opportunistic. If there's something that is remotely interesting, doesn't take a lot of time or money, that is close by, maybe you go there to get a bit of the conference experience. Yeah. So how do you make it possible? So again, here comes from, here we all have, I think, a different background, right? So sometimes there's a lot of funding and funding allocated to travel from your lab or your PI or your country or your university. In other cases, there is nothing. And I guess you have to take this as a reality and base your decisions on that, right? Also know as a PhD student, maybe on a specific like travel, like on specific, how do you call it, scholarship, it might be very difficult to front conference money. If a conference plus travel takes 2,000 euros or dollars, you need to know that you need to front that money and how you're going to deal with these kind of things. And know the requirements of potential financial support. So this can come very local to very international. So often the conferences, many conferences nowadays have support funding. And you have to check if you're eligible for this. Most of the time, the eligibility is actually made so that people that actually need it hopefully get some support and not the people that don't need it, which is a good thing. Often, at least here in Germany, for instance, your graduate school can fund one of the conferences in your PhD, which is nice, but it also means that you have to choose wisely when you want to use that money. Yeah. Sometimes the institute as well. And often your country or maybe even international, there might be funding schemes that can help you to fund. And they are relatively short proposals that have a short turnover time, and you can quite quickly get feedback whether there's money available. For instance, I know in Europe that the cost actions are very, very good ways to get some money to be sponsored to go to conferences. And from what I've seen and heard behind the scenes, very often they are limited by applications, not by money. It's just that people don't apply for this money to get to go there. Yeah. Most of all, ask your peers and network. Maybe you don't have such an extensive network yet, but I'm sure you have colleagues, you have a PI, you have others, and ask them for help where you can get it and what you should focus on. Yeah. And also, as I mentioned briefly before, pick your battles. So if you have an aim, then do everything to reach that aim and don't be too promiscuous, let's say, in going everywhere. And then in the end, you really, really, really wanted to go to that specialist conference in 2 years from now in Japan. But you have been to so many other conferences in these 2 years that your PI says, well, okay, it's enough. You've been to many conferences. So make this clear and pick your battles where align your goals with what is possible, right? So I'm already coming to the end. This was not asked, but I will still give my highly, highly subjective tips of things that I think are, at least in my experience and what I've seen around, could be useful. So a lot of people find this very stressful, traveling and conferences, or especially the combination. So that means that at this conference, you will be super stressed all the time. Try to do everything that you can do beforehand that makes you less stressed. Remove that from the equation that builds up to your stress level so that you can actually enjoy the conference. Yeah. If possible, for instance, if possible, try to go a bit earlier if this is possible. You can be a bit more relaxed. Maybe you have less jet lag. You feel a little bit more comfortable in the area that you are. And also because it can be such a nice experience, maybe you can stay a bit longer if possible. And climate-wise, it might be nice to combine a holiday with a far international flight compared to doing this twice a year, right? This is, I don't know if this is controversial, but in my opinion, smaller meetings are often much better than mega conferences. there's just much more quality in the interactions there. This is more difficult. Do not stick only to your friends. If you go to a conference, it is very nice and convenient to stay with your friend and do everything together, but you will not get the most out of this conference, in my experience, getting in the potential networks that you can make and the potential bonds that you can make. See it as a challenge to go alone to a far conference, maybe. And if you go alone, have some kind of a pitch ready. And I think Anna will discuss this briefly as well. But it's very important that you have a little bit in your head what you're going to say when people ask you, oh, who are you? How do you introduce yourself in a positive and lasting and memorable way? Okay. This is not by far complete overview of all my ideas and recommendations or what you should do, but I think it's a start, and mostly I'm very curious in what you think and the questions you might have, or especially where you think I'm wrong or I'm missing the point, then I'm happy to discuss this with you. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much, Sean, for that wonderful presentation. And that was really enlightening, knowing exactly what we should do before attending conferences and exactly certain tips, like you mentioned, that will really help us get the most when we finally attend conferences. And talking about getting the most from attending conferences, now we'll just transit to Anna to give us our talk about how to maximize participation in conferences. Go on, Anna.
Okay, thank you very much for having me here for this introduction. So yes, let's imagine that we got the funding, got prepared to go for the conference, and we are there. And I'm going to talk today how to maximize our experience. I also made a statement that you kind of have to consider that all of my experiences are really influenced by my character. And I'm also an extrovert, which naturally allows me to gain energy from the valuable interactions with other people. But still, I can get overwhelmed when there's too much, or I'm nervous because of the presentations, or I expose myself to going to the conference where I don't know anyone. So still, I hope that some of my hints will be useful for people that do not take that energy from the meetings with other people. And I was thinking, how can I show my credentials? Have I visited conferences? Yes. Have I organized conferences? Yes. But my participation in conferences was also published in a research article. So here you can have a picture from photosynthesis research from the Gordon Conference on Photosynthesis that was happening a few years back. And here you have me presenting, enjoying my time at the conference. I thought that this is really a good credential why I might be talking to you today. So what are the strategies on leveraging opportunities during the conferences? And can I give you in those few minutes some meaningful tips how to navigate different parts of the conference and how to feel more prepared and comfortable when you're going to go for your first big scientific event. So Sean already covered the part why to go. Don't forget your reason why you're exposing yourself to this potentially stressful situation. And I really appreciate, Sean, that you also mentioned we're going there for science and peers and experts and collaborators and mentors, but we're also going there for friends. We're going there for people that in future might be our collaborators, might be the future new heads of Max Planck Institute and heads of the American Society of Plant Science. So let's not ignore the people that are equally stressed as you are, biting their nails before their first presentation or not finding their way to the room, because you don't know. There might be really the people that you're going to find yourself working with hand in hand for the next 10 years. So some practical examples of what conferences can bring you. Of course, if you present something, you might get a critical feedback, and you might get it faster than you would get it after publishing some research. You get to hear about job offers directly and sometimes before they're actually being published. You talk to people that are at the conferences and you hear that someone just received a grant. They are currently just writing up the job offers, and you get to already hear about them. And you can also talk to people that are in that lab, whether their experience matches your expectations and whether you would actually like to work in such an environment. When you're successful or lucky or a combination of both, you can also get awards for the best presentation, for the best posters. Those are important for building our CV. And you can also learn about different stipends and scholars. So if you have problems with getting visa or additional funding, there's no better question to ask another fellow at the conference than, how was your trip sponsored? Maybe you will get to hear about a new project or a new foundation that is sponsoring the participation. The main message that I would like to carry is that you're supposed to set realistic goals and quality over quantity, which means it's better to make few but meaningful connections rather than trying and go over a week and try to shake a hand with everyone and meet everyone and talk with everyone. So 3 main parts of the conference that I identified as the possible scary areas that I would like to maybe share some tips are poster exhibitions, question and answer session, and social events. So during the poster exhibition, both as a presenter or a visitor, if you're presenting, what if no one will come to my poster? Or what if I cannot answer the question? Or what if everyone's poster around will be better, more colorful, more interesting, etc. Everyone, believe me, everyone standing there will have some sort of questions and self-doubt about it. So you will not be the only one. Question and sessions. Do I ask a question? Am I allowed to ask my trivial, simple question? What if everyone around knows the answer? What if everyone will think that I'm stupid? Should I already know it? Those are the questions that are also popping up in the head of early career researchers, senior researchers. I don't think that it ever goes away. Maybe you allow yourself to have a higher acceptance that you don't have to know everything. And when you're interested, you are allowed to ask. And then social events, this part about how to make the small talk, how to deal when we are already exhausted. What if there's too loud, too noisy, too colorful, and you can't really cope with that. So in details about those scary parts, the most important part, in my opinion, and Sean already mentioned that, and in opinion of few bloggers and people that write about the conferences, you can get prepared to attend the conference successfully if you will at least read the program and read who are the speakers that are coming there. Google how those people look like. If they're interesting to you, if you would like to talk to them, be prepared that you need to recognize them also in a crowd. Choose the sessions that align with your interests and goals. And there is no right or wrong goal for the conference, but you need to know that they're going to be different for different conferences and at different phases of your career. So are you searching for new collaborators? Are you searching for a new method? Something doesn't work in your experiment. You're targeting conference to find out who else has another method in hand. Are you advertising your work? Are you at the end of your PhD and you're actually looking for the new job opportunities? You will be preparing to go to specific sessions through the conference so you can maximize the possible gain depending on your goal. And don't be afraid to attend sessions that are outside of your immediate field to gain new perspectives, to talk with other people that you don't know their papers right away, or you're not familiar with their names. This is also very, very useful in my opinion. So in terms of poster exhibition, if there's any one of you listening right now and is going for their first scientific conference and will be preparing their poster and never attended a poster session, it's a very peculiar experience. It's a very common feature of a scientific conference where researchers are pitching their work, standing in front of the A0 format printout, and it's loud and interactive. And it's one of the greatest experiences, in my opinion, because the most meaningful feedback that I've ever gotten was exactly from me being questioned in front of my poster, because it allows you for intimate intimate discussion with interest people. So what tips can I share? If you're going for a big conference where you can expect dozens, hundreds of participants, put a picture of yourself somewhere on a poster. So when you're not standing next to it, when someone goes through your poster during a coffee break, they can find your face and recognize you in the crowd, which maximizes your possible time of talking about your work, not only limiting you to the allocated time when you stand next to the poster, but also during the whole time of the conference. Prepare your pitch. When there is plenty of posters, people will be passing by and stopping at some posters that they pre-selected, getting prepared through the agenda and the program, but also just taking the opportunity that the poster is empty and looks nice. So let's ask some questions. Be ready to have your 2 minutes pitch to summarize and catch the attention. And for the network strategies, some students get funding for that. Get the business card that you can give to the person that is interested in your work, or use a QR code on your poster so people can scan it and more easily get connected with your work. Follow people with the personalized email afterwards. If you had meaningful and deep discussion and you enjoyed it, don't hesitate to send a private email afterwards saying that you enjoyed that conversation and that you would like to stay in touch and maybe exchange future ideas. And use such a platforms like LinkedIn to request a contact after the conference. Of course, again, those are limited, very personal advices and not ultimate guide to the conferencing. How will the poster exhibition look like if you're just visiting? Can you still use it as an opportunity to present your work? Yes, because this intimate one-to-one or a smaller subgroup discussion is not going in one direction. Of course, the presenter is having the power of having the visuals with them, but you as a visitor, you also can say, I work on a similar aspect. I've done interesting work that might actually answer one of the questions that you state here. Maybe we can work together. Foremost, be respectful and patient when people are having their poster presentations and there's already a big group of people standing in front of the poster. That's your possibility of joining the busy poster discussion. Wait for the natural break in a discussion. Start by introducing yourself. Mention how this work in a poster can relate to your work. Engage in a conversation with the old questions. That way you can learn the most. So what are you mostly proud of in your work? Or what was the most challenging part? Listen actively. Give a sign to the person that is talking to you that you're still there. I got the message that the connection is unstable. Hopefully you did hear what I was saying. How to navigate the question and answer sessions. If you go for the conference that is very close to your expertise and there is already some question in your mind, get prepared, but make sure that this is a relevant question to the talk. Otherwise, leave it out of the session during some other opportunities like a poster session or the social activity that I'm going to mention in a second. I strongly recommend, and I would love for the host of the conferences to really keep that in mind, that we should start questions always with introducing ourselves. So rather than raising your hand and saying, well, I'm actually working on a similar topic since 10 years and we showed something differently, and this is more of a comment rather than question, you just simply start with, my name is Anna Matuszyńska, RWTH Aachen, computational biologist, and here's my question. Why? Because there's a big chance most people there do not know you yet. But your question might be really interesting and relevant to other people's work, and they will note down your name and you will be foundable easier afterwards. So don't be also afraid to follow up after sessions. I'm still sometimes too shy to approach a speaker after the session, especially that right after the presentation and question and answer, people tend to be very busy. But you can approach them later on after a few hours, the next day, and still pass the question that might be more detailed, that you might not want to state during the big question and answer session. Maybe you want to follow up later with an email. Finally, the session that is also important during the conferencing, especially the in-person conferences and not online, the social events. And the picture that I've shown to you at the very beginning of my presentation from this photosynthesis research article on top had a picture of a football game. So at the Gardens conference, the social activity was actually a football game. That was an amazing opportunity for all people to interact and do something really different from what we're doing on a daily basis. So when I talk social events, they can be in a very different formats, but in any case, be prepared with the conversation starters, whether it's going to be standing in a line to the buffet, going for some hiking trip, or geocaching through the city. Those are just an examples of the few events that I took part in. Have some interesting topics to start a conversation with, whether something, what people have seen already in the city. They can be trivial, but have them ready so you feel comfortable that you can start the conversation and carry it for the first 2 minutes. Practice your introductions, this pitch, who you are, what you do, and why you're here, and why is it interesting for another person to spend time with you. For the introverts, arrive early means that there is not yet that many people around. So you might also try to target people in a smaller groups, which might be better for starting conversations. It's going to be quieter and less crowded. You can also look for others. If you're going to approach a person that is standing alone or like seem less engaged, they might appreciate getting approached and getting the introduction. And also to not feel out of the context, inform yourself regarding the dress code. This is something that can scare some of the people in advance. In many areas of science, we are actually quite casual, but still there might be some situations in which more formal dress code is expected, and it's good to know about it, not just so you're caught out of surprise. And also because it was said that you might meet your future friends, they're going to be experts in a field, you're a part of a community that is passionate about similar things. Use social events as an opportunity to talk about grand challenges, to also dream together and talk about things that are not necessarily very pragmatic, research, money, and publication, but use it really as an opportunity to connect and have a think tank experience. This is the part that motivates me the most, that when I finish participating in a conference, I really come back pumped with a positive energy that what I do makes sense. And what I spend my time with on is actually relevant. Exit strategy. You are at the conference, it's your first conference, and you found yourself in a position that someone takes all of your space and your time, and you don't really know how to stop it. The break almost finishes, and there's still this person that you wanted to talk to, or you're actually not really enjoying the conversation anymore. Don't be afraid to use the exit strategy and politely thank that it was really interesting to talk, but you still have some things on your agenda and you want to check the other session and you want to catch up with your colleagues. So you don't have this sense of feeling, oh, I wasted the whole poster session standing with that one person and I miss out on my opportunity. With that, I wanted to finish my subjective Matuszyńska's tips and hints to the conferencing. I also enjoy taking part in those events, and I hope that some of the things that we mentioned today might help you to enjoy them too. And now I'm looking forward to the question and answer session.
Yeah, thank you very much, John and Anna, for this truly insightful and informative presentation. I'm sure we actually learned how to make meaningful tips, and also how to create like a strong network from conferences, which sometimes seems to be challenging or a bit scary. And yeah, going over to the question and answer section, we have some great questions from the audience. And one of them is, the first one is, if we do not present or bring our work in presentation or poster, do you have any suggestion on how you can showcase your work?
Anna,
Yeah.
or you wanna?
Yes.
So I don't know, but so first, I think I want to say that it's very rare that you cannot bring a poster. So almost always you can bring a poster, I would say. So if you can do that at least. Yeah. Reconsider. I'm not saying you shouldn't, but if you're not allowed to bring a poster, maybe reconsider whether you should go to this conference. It really, again, depends on your aims, right? But even then, I think there are ways to show what you're doing, and this is by preparing a pitch. You cannot share all the data, obviously, but you can have prepare a pitch, I would say, of 1 or 2 minutes in which you can say what you are doing, what is the aim of your project, what is so exciting about it, what are you doing to tackle that question. But obviously, you cannot show the data. It is possible to show the data if people are really, really interested in this. You can have your laptop with you and show the data if that's what you want to do. But that's, I think, relatively rare, but I think it's not a bad option. I have sitting with people where they were interested in something that we were talking about, and we actually opened our laptops and discussed it. It is possible at the conference because they are experts. So that could be an alternative. Maybe Anna has other suggestions. Yeah.
So this is the poster. I agree. Most of the places encourage people to come with some work, and you're also more, I think, included when you actually present something. But presenting doesn't mean necessarily to do it to the masses. So still, through the question and answer, social events, going through the poster session, interacting with people between the breaks, you still have a chance to present your work, to mention your work, to make yourself visible, or at least interesting enough so someone will take a look at your work, at your preprint, for example.
Yeah, thank you very much. So we have like another question. It says, how can you evaluate whether a conference was worth investing your time and money?
You feel it.
Yeah, that's very hard to justify, but I think you're right. You feel it. Yeah. But that's whenever you pay money and time on something, is it worth it? You can only say that if you feel it, unless you're doing really a business transaction and how much money are you going to get out of it, or time. That's not a thing. So I think you feel it. Yeah.
And sometimes also the revenue comes a few years after.
That's
but
true.
If the conference was really bad, you feel it right away that something was not there. And what I really want to remind us that none of you here is actually going through your journey alone. There should be supervisor, advisors, mentors, and your colleagues and your peers. Ask them that there's a conference that you would like to go to. Have anyone attended this conference, this event? Are they happy? What's their perspective? I have crossed out several events from my list by taking into account the opinion of the people that I respect and I know how they like to interact. And I put some of the events on my list to maximize the spending of my money to go to something that has a higher potential of bringing me joy and possibilities that I'm searching for.
So maybe I can say one final comment on that. Is again, I think this comes back to how much prepared you are, right? So if you have goals specifically for the conference, and if you're a bit prepared, you can kind of check whether you made your aims and goals of going to this conference, right? They should be realistic goals. And then you have a feeling for whether this was money and time well spent or not. If your expectations or goals are too unrealistic, I don't know, maybe start 3 collaborations with the biggest hotshot in your field as a first-year PhD student. It's possible, but not likely, right? So it depends on it was maybe not the best example, but it's trying to give an idea of what is setting your expectations basically and what you want to get out of it.
Yeah, thank you very much. Okay, like another one, it's like we know that most students, like there are some conferences organized by the student body. So the question is, do you think those student conferences are valuable?
I would love to answer it.
Me too.
Okay.
My opinion, absolutely yes, but not all of them. So I had a pleasure to co-organize the Young Algoneers Symposium back in 2016. With the organizing committee, we're in touch till today. And with one of the co-organizers, we're friends since 10 years. And now that we're both in a positions as a junior professor, director of the institute, we get to organize further meetings together. Because there are no PIs in a room, you have more open and honest discussion, and you also show more of the preliminary results, and you show more of the vulnerability and things that do not work, and you have a chance to bond and network on a level that is different than on the massive conference. And when you manage to find this conference that is professionally organized, but by your colleagues of your career age, this can be a tremendous life-changing, career-changing event, and I highly recommend finding it. Let's see if Sean.
Yeah, no, I fully agree. I think they are one of the best conferences I went to are these kind of conferences, right? So one, because there's a different atmosphere, because you're maybe a little bit less scared, a little bit less inhibited. You are surrounded by peers that are all going through the same or similar colors or shades of what you're going through. And also, I don't know if this was mentioned, but PhD students really think what is good for a PhD student. Like a conference organizer thinks what is good for the general. Well, actually, how do I make the keynote speaker happy? Like that is maybe part of the conference organizer's motive. But if you are organizing it for a PhD student, the whole conference is tailored to give you the best experience and the most support. So I think it is very, very good to go there. Absolutely.
Yeah. So I think this is more like the last question. I know like conferences, sometimes it's more of networking, and also like after the conferences, trying the ability to maintain those networks. So the question is like, do you think like there are some tips in how to introduce yourselves to the keynote speakers? And also like, what are some post-conference activities just to follow up your networks?
You want to start, Anna? No.
No.
So how do you start a conversation with the keynote, and what was the rest of the question?
And also like what are some post-conference activities or follow-up tasks you can consider in order to keep in contact with your networks?
Right. So the first one that can be a goal, it should not be the definition goal. It has to be really, how to say, if the keynote is really in your field, I think it makes sense that you want to talk to this person. If you want to talk to the keynote because he is the keynote, that could be a good reason, but not necessarily, right? So the goal of the conference is not to become friends with the keynote speaker. It could be, but I don't think it's necessarily the best advice. Anyway, any person you want to talk to, you can just approach them. I mean, there's different ways of approaching people, and you try to see how, let's say, popular they are, but typically you try to shadow the person, or you walk around and you see the person, whether they often having interactions or not. If they're often occupied, there could be a way of talking to the person. Look, you can simply try to go and make eye contact and talk to the person. Look, I see you are very busy, but I would really like to talk to you maybe at a later moment. Would that be possible? Something like that. Or so without taking too much of their time, but giving them the possibility to meet them, basically. I think that could be a way of doing that. And actually, I had the same experience very recently at a conference So even, not saying even, I think I feel comfortable talking to people, but here it was again a hot shot from the field, and I really wanted to talk to this person. So again, my experience is subjective, and it was not easy to talk to it was easy to talk to the person, but not to approach them, let's say. And ultimately, you just try to ask them if they would have a moment of your time for them later, anytime in the future of the conference, and that works. Sorry, that was a very long answer to a short question. Anna.
Yeah.
I think you provided a great answer. And aside of, maybe some of the things that are blocking us are more on a psychological level. So it sometimes helps us to remind that all of those, as you use the expression, hot shots, used to be in our position years before. They have years of experience and evidence of their greatness ahead, but they used to be the early career researchers at certain stage. And from my personal experience, most of those interactions are very helpful and gentle. Even if you see that someone might be stressed of discussing, the speakers, the host will be encouraging, and there's really not much to be scared of.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Joran and Anna, for this engaging and interesting presentation on navigating through conference. And I think subsequently, we'll try to make the best out of the conferences. So at this point, I think I will hand over to Jason.
All right, awesome. Thank you again, and I echo what Amarachi just shared. Thank you, Anna and Sean, for such an awesome, incredible talk. It's been very insightful, and I know that folks that are not able to join us and who will tune in later will definitely benefit from such rich content and kind of insight that you've shared around navigating conferences. For us folks in the Western Hemisphere, particularly in the US, summertime tend to be the conference season. And so I think folks who are trying to Google tips on how to navigate conference will find this resource as a really helpful tool that as they prepare for heading to their first conference or second or third. I think we all get involved as conference attendees, and there's always new tips and tricks to learn based on what people are experiencing. To the point that you made about making friends and things like that, everyone's conference experience is different, and there's a lot to be learned from other people's experience. And so with that, thank you again for joining us, and thank you to all the attendees who join us today. You can rewatch, for those that are tuning in, this webinar is recorded, and you can rewatch it again in Plantae YouTube channel, as I mentioned. And if you know folks who are looking for content, feel free to share the webinar blog post, and we'll notify you once the recording is available. But with that said, thank you, and I hope everyone has a lovely weekend, and we hope to see you on the next one. Have a great day, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.